All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, Episode 8.
The Iserlon Fortress has been captured.
Yes, indeed. Yang has put in his retirement papers and also quickly rescinded his desire to do so. Well, not his desire, but his intention to do so.
Mm-hmm.
For now.
Right.
Wow.
Because you can't just stop laying golden eggs once you start.
Mm-hmm.
They will get every single last one they can out of you.
I don't know if this is gonna lead to him like drinking more. You know,
I would not be surprised.
Just a part of his whole journey is just him becoming more and more cynical with war.
Sure.
I would love to see, if anything, though, that he also gains from it the bonds forged within the struggle and the conflict.
Yeah.
So he gets a lot of close people in his life, though.
Yep.
Because I could see his situation being very different from Reinhardt, whereas Reinhardt's rooting out corruption and desiring to conquer everything. Yang is more acquiring close friends and contacts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then corruption is in some ways trying to attach itself onto him.
Right.
But the people around him are like, muda, 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 muda.
But here we are. Yang has definitely scored a major victory. I would not be surprised if they shifted focus to the Empire here to see how they respond and react to what happened.
Yeah.
Specifically Reinhardt, because let's be real, he's going to be getting involved, I think.
Yeah. Also, I feel like they have to eventually think about the prospect of finding some other way to invade Alliance territory.
Right.
Like, I'm sure that that's a constant thing both sides are thinking about. But I wonder, like, what the actual reasons are for why this is the only way they can go.
That's very true. Yep.
Because it's kind of sus, if you ask me.
Yeah.
But, y'all, we're going to have to see how the balance of power and everything shifts.
Yep.
And, all that good stuff. So, without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everyone, be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, and then come back here for the discussion. All right. Okay, we have our first little bit of intrigue, I would say.
Yeah.
That Reinhardt is actively taking a part in, as opposed to kind of just like, I did my job, and now political stuff is happening around me.
Because
Oberstein and...
Oberstein. So, he, naturally, there were some issues with what he decided to do, you know. But Reinhardt really wants him to serve him. But Oberstein also is confident enough, brash enough, you know, whatever you want to call it, that he suggested treason to Reinhardt that quickly. And maybe it was something where he was banking on basically tapping into...
The rumors being true, maybe?
The rumors being true, tapping into Reinhardt's greed, you know, or something like that. And that being something that he could get alongside and use to, well, for his own survival.
Right. Because at the very least, he would have been court-martialed and forced to resign from his military status and being stripped of all title, what have you, and that. Now, I don't know what that would mean for his actual survival.
I think for his actual survival, he'd be okay, but he'd be like, you know, it's...
Yeah, like, he would have no wealth. He would probably have no status in the Empire.
Yeah.
He would essentially become a nobody overnight.
Yep.
Is my guess. And that would effectively probably mean death as regarding his influence and also his dream.
Yeah.
His ability to change anything would have been stripped down.
And and the thing is that it's not just that he, you know, would like for Reinhardt's greed to be a thing. He has a personal, deep-set grudge with
the Empire.
The Empire and how it's being run.
Yes.
And understandable.
And while it definitely is something that is connected to the immediate events that happened at the Iserlon Fortress, I would say that there's a very real possibility that it's more that he is someone maybe like Yang, who looks at the whole perspective on the big picture a little bit objectively. And he doesn't have as much of an attachment to the Empire being a certain way. He just realizes that the current iteration is decadent and
so many problems.
Towards dissolution.
Yeah.
So rather than being someone that would just let history play itself out, and he's not necessarily a fan of the Alliance, in that he's not trying to actively subvert the Empire. Like, there were opportunities where he could have made the situation at the Isolon Fortress worse and still gotten away.
Yes.
And he didn't do that. It's because he does actually want the Empire to probably win in the war against the Alliance.
But the Empire that he wants to exist is not the one that currently is here. So
so he is not a revolutionary in the strictest sense.
Right.
He is a reformer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's willing to use the more direct methods, maybe.
Now. Probably because he's desperate.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
But oh boy.
So that's cool. We have a cybernetic enhanced person.
Yep.
And in the same episode, this has to be something that was intentional, because I literally was talking about this in a previous episode's discussion, the last one or the one before that, about the idea of there being someone that could live on beyond the bounds of humanity via cybernetics. And there's like, as there is no immortal person, there is no society that can rule forever. I'm like, okay.
All right.
Hold up a minute. They reminded us about Oberstein's cybernetics, because we had already seen that before with his eyes. Then they also said in the same episode there's no immortal person. Which,
now they didn't go as far as they could have, because they didn't show, like, then do a hard cut to like Fejan or something like that. Right?
I don't think that there is anyone currently that can do that, but I think they're bringing it up as just a thing to drop in there, because maybe someone in the future does try to do something like that.
Fejan.
Yeah, that would be fantastic.
But even if they don't, it brings up it's again bringing up the whole idea of time running its course and things changing, and the idea that even for the Kaiser, who's aware of Reinhardt's ambitions, or at least the possibility of their existence, but he doesn't see it as a bad thing.
Not necessarily, no.
He almost doesn't even, like, he talks about it as being the end of the Empire, but in a lot of ways it almost seems like he's like, nah, this is just the natural progression, right?
Yeah. And I think that would be something that would be a natural conclusion for someone who wields such power and looks probably at the grand course of history. Because with the amount of knowledge he has access to, he understands Kaiser Rudolph's, the original starter of the Empire. Galactic Empire! But his probable bloody ascent was not one that was ideal necessarily, but he probably looks at it as the ends justified the means, but in order to hit that next stage of the golden age of humanity, or what have you, even though the golden age of humanity happened before the whole Kaiser Galactic Empire thing, which is kind of something I'm wondering if they'll bring up more with Yang being the historian. He's like, it's kind of interesting how, we were in the golden age, but because of all this decadence and this wondrous stuff that happened, we saw a grand societal, political change, because maybe we were just living in that decadence.
Well, and one of the other things about the current Kaiser that I think is really interesting is that, it's been 500 years. There were 36 or 34, some ridiculous number.
36 Kaisers.
36 Kaisers. So, like, comparing this to something like, I don't know, like Vinland Saga or something, where the empires didn't really last that long, and it's like, okay, if you have a ruler and they're a ruler that took power, right? They specifically like made sure that they were the ones in power.
They wrested power from
exactly,
instead of it being passed down.
Yep. Then they're a lot more likely to be fighting to control it, right?
Yes.
To keep it. And of course, no one would want to lose that kind of power, but for someone that's on the edge of their years and they're kind of on the way out, there would probably be a lot more acceptance about the idea that, yes, it's going to go to someone else. And there's no reason to say that it has to be my descendant. It could be some young new upstart, right? That might have some new way of doing things, right?
Right.
That seems, like
they wouldn't have a big beef wisdom,
about it.
Because he's basically assuming he doesn't know everything.
Right, which is great.
Yeah.
It's showing that in a lot of ways, even though
people can be corrupt.
Though people can definitely be corrupt, and he is not fully in the sense of decadence that everyone else is. Even though, which might be because he's at the top, right? So he doesn't have to struggle to stay on the top, really. It's just he's at the top, right? And maybe he has 10 years left, so, whatever.
Right.
But yeah,
I've hit the top, I've had to stop,
and that's what's bothering me. Yep.
Yeah, the funny thing is, I don't think that's his problem here specifically.
Oh, no.
But I wanted to bring that up specifically with regards to the intrigue surrounding the three.
Yes.
The three chiefs of state,
chief of staff,
chief of staff.
Yeah.
So we have the Secretary of State. We have the fleet command, the massive fleet commander,
right?
Position here. Let's make sure we've got all that correctly here. There was another one that I think was probably either the treasurer.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, here we go. The Secretary of
War.
Let's see. The Supreme Command HQ Secretary General and the Space Fleet Commander.
Gotcha.
Okay, so those are very military focused.
All very military.
So they're all soldiers. Okay.
Right. Okay,
so we have like a general strategist. We have the main secure kind of communications relay person, which I would say that's the Supreme Command HQ Secretary General, and then the Space Fleet Commander is the guy that's going out on the front lines and doing again the tactics. Yeah. So we have tactics, strategy, and communications. It seems like.
Yep.
And so they're all soldiers, and once they realize that their officers that they dedicated to the Isolon Fortress failed them, they're like
failed spectacularly.
They're like
really
hey,
shat the bed.
This was our responsibility to choose that. Yep. Here's our resignations.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that in the same sense that there was the people that sought glory, and that was their failing that led to them losing the Isolon Fortress. We have these people here who are concerned about honor and realize that we have dishonored the Empire.
Yep.
And that the buck doesn't have to stop here with us. So we have no problem for the glory of the Empire giving up our position to someone else that probably wouldn't make the same mistake we did.
Even if it would be that guy that we really don't like.
Well, that's the thing. I think that's beautiful in that you have a difference between them and the Secretary of State.
Yes.
The Secretary of State is like, I don't like the fact that he potentially would have too much power because he's tied to the Fejan Dominion, the Secretary of State.
Right.
He has shenanigans he's involved with here. So he wants the three of them to stay there, and yet I think the only reason why the chiefs of staff, these three soldiers, commanders or what have you, the reason why they don't like what Reinhardt's doing there is that in some ways they kind of got slapped on the wrist by the young upstart, but being like, it's okay. You're not that influential to where you need to be replaced anyway. Like what kind of political statement is he making to them because by doing this?
Because in their position, they should absolutely have the higher status than Reinhardt, right?
They do.
And even though he's an upstart and he's progressing quickly, he hasn't progressed that quickly yet, right?
Right.
And yet he is basically condescending to say, No. It's fine. Show mercy.
It wasn't their fault.
It wasn't directly their fault. It was the fault of their superiors and all that stuff. And there are ways that they can deal with the punishments of this without actually resigning. All that stuff.
Right. Is the fault of Stockhausen and Siecht. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Is not
right. That's something where basically he is taking the moral high road.
Right.
On their behalf, as their subordinate.
Yes. As someone who is their inferior.
Right, exactly.
In the chain of command.
And specifically in the presence of the Kaiser. That's got to be...
Well, yeah, and then the Secretary of State, I love the thing of where he's like, I am struck with admiration for the Count's opinion, which is unexpected of his youth. He has to throw an insult in there.
Yeah.
Like, to remind, I don't see him as being, like, necessarily wise
Backhand
or anything.
compliment, yeah.
Right. With this youth, I would not expect him to be so magnanimous here.
I would have expected him to be a lot dumber and brasher, but wow, good job, Yeah.
But this is something that I guess you kind of have to do if you are the Kaiser, is delegate and also hear the opinions of others.
Sure.
So this is just an episode where my opinions of the Kaiser went from being like, he's a tired old man that does nothing to... Oh, he's actually kind of wise. He listens to other people. He definitely is more concerned with having a little bit of peace in his life so that he goes and tends to flowers. But he has a good head on his shoulders for the most part.
Right.
At least with regards to this. And then the way that the three, massive, commanders here, they have their discussion regarding this is going like, he's a shrewd a shrewd guy, this Lohengram. So, all right.
Yeah.
We'll have to do that. Reinhardt just casually being like, posts are stopping points for me.
Wait, no, but
I'll put them on loan.
Yeah.
I'll loan them to them for a little while instead of an old folks home.
Oh my god. That this might be some of the most intense shade that I have ever seen thrown between fictional characters.
This is how he talks when he's with Kirchheis.
Yeah, he's not even saying it like to smack them in the face, right? Verbally.
Right.
No, they're never gonna hear this. No. Like that's wow, Reinhardt.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You really he really is planning to conquer the universe.
Yeah. Yeah.
Jeez.
I love Kirchheis bringing up their past there in his mind as he thinks about, Reinhardt being a little bit brash constantly.
Yeah.
But that he'll follow him through everything. He'll follow him into hell and back. Mm-hmm. He'll do anything he can to see this young man and his dream and his ambitions be made into a reality.
Yep.
Because he has a similar view, and this is something that is really more important for us as the third-party omniscient perspective here. We get to see that he has a similar view of the Empire as even the Kaiser does, but he had this view of regarding the passage of history
when he was a kid. Yep.
So he sees the actual formation of the Empire as disgraceful, as something that was done in some ways rashly, which is interesting to hear coming from the rash, brash, young kind of upstart kid.
Right, but it's the idea that, hey, that is a very great point. When you establish yourself as the leader of some organization and, you put people around you that are just yes men, right? Yeah. That's actually from a place of fear and insecurity rather than from confidence and everything because... Yeah. Oh man. So that was just wonderful, and it shows how Reinhardt is really ahead of his years, right?
Quite so.
Even though
quite so,
he is still very rash and kind of believes that he sort of can't fail. You know, because like attacking the noble, right? He was pissed, rightly so.
Right.
And yet when they left, he was cheery. Right? He wasn't like, okay, so we need to make sure that we get back in time because, that was a delay or something like that.
Right.
No. They just jump onto a grassy hill, and look up at the sky. Okay. Maybe that was in fact something that gave him more confidence and he kind of got drunk off of that in a bit. And now he's like, what?
Yeah, the Golden Bomb Dynasty is with the birth of the human race.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to have happened.
Right. Like
Reinhardt. Whoa.
Screw curfew, right?
Let's just commit treason.
Let's commit treason. Let's take over the universe. This is great.
See, I love that there is both the naive desire but it is met with this competence and intelligence that betrays a certain level of, I would say a certain level of conniving that I think the character of Reinhardt, it would be easy to forget about him, is that he is a schemer.
Yes.
He is very much an innocent boy when we look back at these points here, in that not really. That's the thing. We still have to remember
there
all the things
of that innocent boy.
There are aspects of that innocent boy, but it is mixed with this other side of him that schemes, that in some ways will reinforce his own beliefs in him being right about the corruption that he sees. He sees everything as a very black and white
definitely
kind of way. I would just say that helps accelerate his own confidence and belief in that he's doing the right thing. But this is why it's so important that Kirchheis and Reinhardt are friends.
Yep.
Because
I was gonna say that.
While the two of them are together, Reinhardt is unstoppable. Reinhardt is absolutely unstoppable.
But that's a big but.
But I would say for now, that's the point. That's the point that we're getting across here.
Well, yes, and yet in this same episode, we had Reinhardt pay a hefty cost to get an additional advisor that is not a friend or a loyal ally or anything,
and puts a literal point in the story at like multiple points where Kirchheis is not with him when he's talking with Oberstein.
Right.
And while I would say that is not an immediate problem, because I foresee actually Oberstein being one of the most powerful assets he has actually.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Because Oberstein might actually
Oberstein's Y is pretty solid.
Well, yeah, but Oberstein might actually do anything for Reinhardt's ambition once he knows what it is.
I think so. I
think that there's more potential problem with the idea of Kirchheis being actually the kind of person where we saw him being unable to shoot Oberstein there. That Kirchheis is the kind of person that will have to rein back Reinhardt, whereas Oberstein will be like,
egging him
keep
on.
Keep going.
Because Oberstein is, like, just making this prediction here, Oberstein's going to be the zealot.
I like that. Zealot just has certain religious connotations that I know what you mean. But yes, I like the word choice.
Like he had the fear of euthanization as like knowing that I would have just been thrown in a ditch. I would have been injected with a little serum, and that would have been it for me.
We just casually just throw that out there. That was a thing.
But there's
very recently.
But it's very important that this isn't the first time he's mentioned it.
Yes.
The first time he mentioned it, I was like, "Oh, that's pretty chilling and serious, and wow." And that might go to show potentially where he's really grateful that the Empire isn't like that anymore.
Yes.
Right, where he's like, "Oh, thank God, it's not like how it used to be. Like I, otherwise I wouldn't be here." Right.
Right.
But no, he's got a grudge about it.
Oh yeah.
More than a grudge.
Because I think in a lot of ways, he probably identifies in a lot of ways with the people in the past where he's just read history books and been like,
yeah.
Oh God, we did that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a chilling subject matter to bring up.
Oh yeah,
because I think we're in a good place now in the real world where, anyway, we have a lot of bad history, I would say, regarding this subject, and it takes many different forms.
Oh boy!
But I would just say the fact that it was just casually brought up as the characterization and the motivation as to why a certain character, just one character, in this story will have their desire to align with Reinhardt.
Yeah,
I am excited to see what other characters get as their motivation to align with Reinhardt.
Yep.
Because given that he basically says, from here on, my battle is not just a matter for the battlefield. And I think that is a fourth wall breaking meta thing to tell the viewer, get ready for some political intrigue, because we're not going to do as much space battles with Reinhardt now.
Right.
I'm going to establish my political sphere of influence a little bit more.
Right, like, if you think about it, with the position that Reinhardt's in, he should almost never have to go out on a major battle unless it's a serious campaign, right?
Right. He can delegate his admirals.
Exactly. He sends them out there and they do their stuff, right? And he
2,000 ships this way, 4,000 ships this way, 10,000 ships this way.
Reinhardt's playing an RTS now.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And so, okay. And that means that the things that he'll have to deal with will be all those political maneuverings and interacting with the other VIPs and whatnot.
This is probably one of my favorite things about strategy games in general, is the ones that have some form of open diplomacy.
Oh yeah,
I love playing like old school, like Age
Civilization
of Empires 2 and stuff like that.
No,
Civilization is ridiculous. Like, Civilization is turn based, but the ones that are real time and involve alliances, that's where things get crazy. And I always loved playing multiplayer in those where you would have essentially be an open free-for-all, and you'd constantly be leveraging, like...
but you could actually, like, the teams weren't locked, so you could actually, join teams with somebody temporarily, and, man.
Yeah. There's a lot of them like that. But, hey, I'm all for some political intrigue.
Oh, yeah.
I think that this is something that I find rather interesting. It says, to avoid complications, both unending deceit and murder may be necessary. And then Oberstein and him have like a moment where they kind of are like acknowledging, okay, so you know what's up here? And then he's like, well, if you understand that much, then I have nothing to say. Meaning that Oberstein's like, all right, I'm with you.
Which is crazy.
That's good. But I just note that we've never heard really Reinhardt talk like that with Kirchheis in the room.
That's
so I would
true.
like to see if he starts to adopt here's how I talk with Kirchheis, here's how I talk without Kirchheis.
Yeah.
Now, I would say that he has no problem showing his disdain for corruption to Kirchheis, right?
Right, but talking about like doing cloak and dagger stuff,
unending deceit and murder specifically. That's yeah. Okay. We're reminded of Anne Rose's connection to the Kaiser here, and the Secretary of State being like, "Hey, yeah, you agree with me? Oh, well, okay, then don't you why aren't you doing anything about it?" And this is such a curious line. The Kaiser says, "Since you don't know fear, you're not limited to wielding authority as senior statesman." There's two negatives in here.
Oh,
because if you did know fear, you would be limited to wielding authority as senior statesman.
Right.
But what's crazy about this here is that the Secretary of State is displaying fear.
Yes.
He is literally doing not that. He is saying...
And in fact, they're talking about how Reinhardt is about to start doing things that go outside of his appointed authority.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like, but do you think I don't know that he's scheming to usurp the throne by taking advantage of me? And I find it interesting that they bring it up under this context. Both the Kaiser and Reinhardt said, just as with the genesis of the human race, there's no reason for the existence of the Golden Bomb Dynasty. The idea that humanity wasn't a mistake of evolution, or no, an accident of evolution, okay. But the idea that the Golden Bomb Dynasty happened as a result of a bunch of little factors and then a couple choices and some big timing things, and boom, we have this dynasty based around a family, which, okay, gotcha. And I love the idea that they're bringing this up so early, because I don't think that most shows would have the Empire side literally talking about it from the standpoint of their leader being one that's like, yeah, the evil truth may be that the Galactic Empire will die out in my era.
Right. I would maybe expect something like this on episode 8 if this was a 2-core show. Maybe. Right?
Yeah. Because I'm expecting at some point we're going to have like a 3 to 5 year time skip.
Right. Like this is like having this
when
happen
some big
here.
Things happen, and then it's like,
having this happen here is making me think that Reinhardt's going to actually have taken over the Empire by like episode 50.
Yeah, like episode 75 or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Which means that's a lot of time after that where we still have the show and Reinhardt's... What? Okay.
Because
really, the Legend of the Galactic Heroes, they're going to go far past where we started.
Far past. Like, we are in prologue territory here.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something that's exciting to think about, because I think most stories aren't... They can't afford to go for this scale because they are maybe worried about sacrificing some aspect of the writing.
Sure.
Or feel like they'll lose the audience on their journey with the characters.
Right, because think about this, right? Yeah. If you set up the Empire and the Alliance and it's this great conflict and whatnot.
Yeah, and they're good guys on both sides.
Good guys on both sides and everything. Yeah, right. But that's essentially what you're getting your audience to sign up for.
Right. We might change the fundamental nature of the conflict midway through the show or something.
Or potentially earlier. Like that. Okay, so that's very that's different. It's different, and even though it's like Legend of the Galactic Heroes, so it makes sense that this will be about something like that happening. It's like, are they actually gonna do that?
Yeah.
Oh,
I would love it, because I don't think in history I can think of a hostile takeover of an empire that led to a new empire coming out of said empire that lasted any period of time. Like, there were multiple times where you would have cloak and dagger stuff, things like that.
Or like
the easy example is the Roman Empire. You look back at the Roman Empire, and it did last almost 1,000 years. Like, as far as being not really an empire, because it didn't really become an empire immediately, but like as far as Roman society, culture, or what have you, it lasted nearly 1,000 years. But there were multiple times where there were different stages of what the empire was, but it was just more always growing and evolving.
Yeah.
And then you look back at other empires, and there's nothing really that ever lasted that long or even really evolved and changed that much.
Yeah. And even then, it's usually something where another power will take over and conquer something else, right?
Yeah.
Not where it'll actually be revolutionized to some fundamental degree from the inside and last, right?
Yeah.
Because usually it falls apart.
In some ways, I think most more modern societies now are worried about this kind of thing happening, because it's never on the empire level. It's on we had a revolution of a political kind of way of doing things, and then a lot of people die when that happens there, or a lot of things change to the point where the nation as itself isn't recognizable anymore. There have been a lot of instances of that happening, but that's on such a small scale that it's I mean, on a small scale, meaning like we're talking in the millions of people, not in the, not in the 40% of the world's population kind of way. Like, well, I mean, the Roman Empire probably at the time would have been about, 20 to 30% of the world's population. It's really ridiculous.
No idea. I mean...
Yeah, it was a large...
large
amount.
The world that people knew of back then was a lot smaller, but...
Right. I kind of think about the Mongols at some point, because they never really had a strong central political leadership setup. There were times of Kublai Khan where there was a lot of, I would say, a time where it wasn't about expansion, and it was about kind of establishing relations and what have you with certain nations and what have you. But I think that maybe this is some aspect of the creators or writers or writer or what have you being like, well, what would it look like if this actually happened?
Yeah.
And maybe that's something that, it's a wet dream story idea of like the original guy from Star Trek or what have you. It'd be like, what happened if we actually reimagined everything after I'd already imagined the Galactic Confederation or what have you. Whatever the main body of power that the Earth group was in. I
forget in
Star Trek.
We're not
like
Trekkies.
Star Trek at all, really. But anyway, that being said, very fascinated to see what happens here. We got a lot of exposition. We got a lot of insight into our Empire main political figures, and we have set a stage for Oberstein to have his dream partner with Reinhardts. So that's exciting. There are little tidbits here, stuff like Heinesen being the revolutionary for the Free Planets Alliance. Yeah. And that ended up being the name of their planet that is the capital. Yep. So it's like, okay, that's a little cool tidbit there. Yeah. The idea that there's a space year and imperial year, that's also kind of fascinating.
It makes sense.
But it might be good to have brought up just in case when they mention the years. Oh, yeah. From different people's perspectives. We're like, wait, whoa, we're jumping hundreds of years. What's going on?
Right, so 309 is the difference. That's the important thing.
309 is the difference, yeah. The space year is 309 years ahead.
Of the imperial
year.
In
the count, yeah.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So, y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. It was a good one. If you want to see the next episode's reaction discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about other anime in general, and you can also talk with Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
That's right. If you're interested in sci-fi and things like that, then you should totally check out my sci-fi novel called Battle Lines, because it's really cool, and it's on Amazon. The link's in the description down below, in both hardback and ebook. So whichever one works best for you, go check it out.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all
next time.